Shri Shambho Ramanatha. Welcome to another session of Shiva Purana. In the last session, we saw how Nandi came about, how his tapasya was fruition, how he got married, and the importance of becoming a rishi vis-a-vis being a unmarried brahmachari or sannyasi. Today we will look into a very important event or episode in the story of Shiva, Sati, not just the two of them, but the entire universe. This story, according to me, is very relevant because it is still happening. I will tell you at the end of it why the story is so often repeated in all our Puranas. Of course, Shiva Purana mentions it as a very important event that happened in this universe, in this Manvantara. But it is also important to understand that it is repeated in many other Puranas also. This episode is called Samudra Manthana. The story actually starts, with a curse. There is a very ancient rishi called Durvasa. Now, Durvasa is also considered to be the reincarnation of Rudra himself. He is a very powerful rishi. Once he sees Indra, the god of deities, you must understand, when we say God of deities, we don't mean the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar. We do not mean the Paratattva, the eternal Shiva, Sadashiva or Paramashiva. We are talking about the chief of the elements, if you want to call it that, the chief of the controller of forces of nature, Indra. Indra was riding on his Vahana, vehicle, Airavata, which is supposed to be a four-tusked white elephant. He was riding on it, and he came across sage Rishi Durvasa, who had in his hands, for some reason, a garland of Parijata. The importance of Parijata flower is given in the Bhagavatam, where Krishna is equated with Parijata, the flower itself. And it is very difficult to create a mala, a garland out of Parijata. I do not know what is the English word for Parijata. I'll find out next time and tell you. Parijata is a very delicate flower, and Durvasa, who has this garland, gives it to Indra. Indra, instead of putting it on himself, puts it on his Vahana, his vehicle, Airavat. An elephant is an elephant. The elephant takes off the garland, the mala, and throws it on the ground and tramples it down. Sage Durvasa is known for his short temper. He gets all worked up. He gets mad at what just happened, and he curses Indra to lose his throne as the chief of all nature forces. He loses the Indra Padavi, as it is called, the throne of being Indra, because Indra is not just a person, Indra is also a kind of portfolio. And he says, you will be bereft of any Shakti henceforth. And he disappears. Sage Durvasa, Rishi Durvasa disappears. And this information is carried, of course, I'm going to use two words. I'm going to use the words Devas and Daityas. When I mean Deva, the word divinity comes from the word Deva, meaning illuminated, the Illuminati, if you want to call it that. The forces of nature, the deities of nature are called Devas. And the opposite dark forces that are always fighting with these devas are called the Danavas or the Daityas. Okay, so the Danavas or the Daityas have employed a lot of informers in the heavens, the Svargaloka, which is ruled by Indra. This curse is reported to the commander-in-chief of the Daityas called Rahu. You might have heard of Rahu Kala. He is considered to be one of the 9 planets in the Sanatana Hindu astrology and astronomy, though modern astronomy has failed to give reference to what this Rahula is. Some people say that it is the apogee and the perigee of moon. Let's not get into astronomy and astrology right now, but here in the story, Rahu is considered to be the is the commander-in-chief of the Daitya army. He brings this information to the king, Bali Chakravarti, who is the chief of all the Danavas or the Daityas, who is guided by a guru called Shukracharya. You must understand this Hindu Taratamya, as it is called, the Hindu hierarchy of upwardly mobile conscious beings and downwardly degrading conscious beings. The Sanatana Hindu Puranic wisdom says, if you are good, if you are dharmic, if you are doing things which are prescribed in the natural law, then you are going upwards, which is towards light. If you are doing bad things, if you have bad qualities, if you are hurting others and yourself, then you are going down into Andantamas, darkness. If you're going towards height, you're going towards Swarga, you're going towards heavens. If you're going down, then you're going towards darkness, you're going towards hell. There are 7 netherworlds or 7 hells, as some people like to call it. And there are 6 heavens or 6 higher worlds, as some people like to call it. So Shukracharya is very happy to know about the curse of Rishi Durvasa. He says, let us attack. Let us capture Swarga. Let us capture the heavens. On which Bali Chakravarti, who is a just king, he is a good king. He is slated to be the next Indra. That's another story for another day. He says, no, we will not attack right now, but we will wait for the right opportunity. Of course, the right opportunity comes along, and the Daityas attack the heavens, and with their own force, they capture Swarga, the heavens. Indra has to elope with his wife and other deities, Mitra, Varuna, Agni, and others. There are many deities who control the force of nature. They all run away, and they all seek refuge in Vishnu, who is the preserver of this whole thing. Vishnu wants to consult with Lord Brahma and decide what to do. The two of them have a deep meeting, and it is decided that listen to this, because the Daityas also worship Shiva. This is the unique thing about Shiva. Not only do the gods, the deities, the divine beings, the good people worship Shiva, the dark forces, the Daityas, the Danavas, the Rakshasas, the demons, they also worship Shiva. How can the central core of the entire universe be untouched by any part of it. For Shiva, he is equally benevolent to everyone. He doesn't differentiate between God and demon and Danava and Deva. He doesn't differentiate. So Brahma and Vishnu decide that it is best for Shiva because he is the one who grants boons, he is the one who is empowering the Daityas, the dark beings who have taken over the heaven. It is best that Shiva gives a just verdict. So they all go to Kailasa, where, as usual, Rudra is meditating. They wake him up and tell him this is what has happened. Bali Chakravarti has not only taken control of the Swarga, now he has become the king of the entire nether worlds as well as the higher worlds. The balance of this universe is off. Please tell us what to do, Shiva. Shiva doesn't have to think instantly, he has the solution with him. He says, see, all this fight is for resources, right? Because everyone wants to live in luxury, everyone wants to live in affluence, everyone wants to live the life of comfort. So the Daityas are always fighting with the Devas. And all the wealth has got accumulated in the heavens, Swarga. So Shiva comes up with this solution. Oh, one more thing. When the heavens were attacked by the Daityas, the deities, Indra and others, collected all the important monies, ratnas, which are loosely can be translated into precious stones or precious items. Do you remember the Lord of the Ring where Gollum goes, my precious? So all these precious items of this universe which were collected, much like I think the British Museum in London, all the precious items of the world were there at Indra's palace, which was collected and thrown into the ocean. So Shiva says, all the precious items in the world are in the womb of Samudra, of the sea. And we should churn the seas and take out all these precious nuggets, these precious stones. I just don't want to call it stones because there are so many precious items that later come, and I will explain what they are and what they mean to us. So Shiva says these items must be equally distributed between the Devas and the Danavas, the Devas and the Daityas. Okay? So everybody is flabbergasted. Really? You're going to give half of everything to the dark forces? In Shiva's rationale, in our own tradition, which is, I'm also a Shiva now, the Natha tradition, light and darkness are not two different things. They are the same thing with different varying degrees. More light is day, less light is night, no light is complete darkness. Or conversely, more dark night, less dark is day. It is one entity. Darkness and light are one entity. In fact, if you understand the genesis of the Devas and the Daityas and the Nagas and the animals and the birds, you will find that we have the source of all of them to be Rishi Kashyapa. You've heard of Kashmir, which is in a lot of controversy these days. And we were also there a few months back, establishing the Sharada temple there. You will have known, if you don't know, I'll share the story with you, that this entire Kashmir area was submerged in the sea, under the sea. And Kashyapa Rishi requested Vishnu to excavate earth, which is surrounded by mountains on all sides, Piripanjal range on one side and the Himalayas on the other side, excavate earth and clear this vale, V-A-L-E, vale, for populating it with people. So he has a wife called Aditi, whose children become Aditya. They are all deities, they are all gods. He has another wife called Diti, whose children become the Daityas. So they are actually brothers, cousins, not cousins also, they are step brothers. The gods and the demons, the light forces and the dark forces, the Devas and the Daityas are actually brothers, half brothers. This is important. See, I have told you, and I will tell you again, all the stories of Puranas have a hidden, deeper, esoteric meaning. I'll be sharing these meanings with you at the end of today's session. So, Shiva beckons the Daityas, Rahu, Bali Chakravarti. He also beckons Indra and the other deities and comes up with this plan that let us take the precious items out of the sea and distribute it equally. Of course, the Devas who have lost Swarga, they have no other option but to accept it. Shukracharya, Bali Chakravarti and Rahu, the commander, have a discussion. Shukracharya especially is very mindful, he is very doubtful of what the Devas might do, that they might get shortchanged, they might get cheated, which has happened in the past in the other Manvantaras. But they cannot refuse the offer of Shiva, because if Shiva withdraws his Krupa, withdraws his grace, then the Rakshasas, the Danavas, the Daityas become powerless. So reluctantly, Shukracharya, one more thing I wonder, Shukracharya is the guru of all the Daityas and Danavas. I feel that Shukracharya, this is another theory, Shukracharya could probably be Zarathustra, who is also the founder of the Parsi faith. And if you look at the placement of Kashmir, there are many stories where the Daityas were banished away from Kashmir towards the west, and to the west of Kashmir lies Irana, Arya Varta, or the current Iran, Persia. It is in Iran that the Parsi faith flourished. Zarathustra is also the founder of the Abrahamic forces. So we have on one side the Brahminic forces, the Brahma's forces, which exist and flourish in India as Sanatana Dharma. And on the other side, in Iraq, Persia, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Saudi Arabia, you find the Abrahamic forces which believe in a monotheistic God. And you see all this Islamic jihad and all that happening because of the teachings of Zarathustra, which is could be Shukracharya. Of course, this is something which has not been proven yet, but this is a theory that I'm proposing to you. Also, very importantly, the the Devas are called Suras and the Danavas are called Asuras. Sura meaning those who drink liquor and take intoxication, and Asuras mean those who do not drink or take any intoxicants. So if you look at Islam, it prohibits drinking. If you look at Sanatana Hindu Dharma, drinking is very much a part of all its ritual, including the Somapana. So this is just a theory. We kind of sidetracked, I think. Let's come back. So Shiva's solution is accepted by all, but there are a few people who are really worried about it. One of them is Vasuki, the king of all the snakes of the world, who lives underwater. He says, if the great sea, imagine the size of the sea and the strength of the Devas and the Danavas, if they have to churn the ocean to find ambrosia, immortality, of course, the biggest precious item of them all is ambrosia, the Amrita. To get ambrosia, the churning must happen and something huge must be used as the rope. And there is nothing in this entire world which is bigger than Vasuki, and Vasuki is worried about it. He comes to Shiva and says, Shiva, you are going to use me as a rope, will I not die? Shiva blesses him with immortality even before the churning, even before the Samudra Manthan, Vasuki is given immortality. Shiva says, your body will be used for the betterment of all the living sentient beings in the world, and that is the greatest thing you can do. Paropakarasya idam shariram. Why does anyone have a body? Paropakarasya. To do good unto others, we are given a body. So Vasuki is convinced. He says, Om Namah Shivaya, leaves the place. Now we need to have a very big cudgel, like when we do the churning, we need a churning rod. Where is the churning rod? The Mandara Parvata or the Meru Parvata. He is, of course, embodied and shown as a human being or a living being. He comes to Shiva and offers his services. But he says, listen, if I am to be the churning rod, will I not sink in the mighty oceans? That is when Vishnu offers his services and says, I will be the base, as Kurma, as a tortoise, I will be at the base of Mount Meru or Mount Mandara, and I will help you stay afloat. And Brahma, the Chaturmukha Brahma, offers his services and he says, I will be sitting on top of the Mount Meru, balancing the two sides, the right and the left. So this is how the whole Samudra Manthana, the churning of the ocean, the Milky Way, you must imagine this to be a huge universal ocean. The Milky Way itself, not just the galaxy, many, many galaxies. And the churning is happening at a universal level, where the forces of the good and the forces of the evil are holding a snake and pulling it to and fro, wrapped around a huge, humongous mountain called Mandara, which is supposed to be 10x the size of Mount Everest, supported by Vishnu at the bottom as a tortoise, a universal tortoise. The tortoise holding the world, the universe, is represented in many, many mythologies all over the world. And to balance is sitting the creator on top of the Mount Meru. And all this gamification, all this play is created by Lord Shiva. Isn't it wonderful? There are a couple of points which I would like to share, probably in the next session, which are very important. Remind me in the next session to tell you. There's a dialogue between Shiva and Sati as to the nature of gods, demons, and humans, which I would like to share in a separate session. But I want to tell you today about the symbolic meaning of this entire Samudra Manthana. You and everybody who's listening to this are, according to me, sadhakas, people who have embarked on the spiritual journey. If you're alive, then you have a spirit. If you have a spirit, then you're spiritual. If you are spiritual, you must partake in the journey of spirituality. So what does this story symbolize? You will understand that the whole story of life's evolution of life from a single cell to who you are as humans is nothing but the evolution of the brain itself. I have already mentioned earlier that the brain initially in an amoeba is nothing but its stomach. From there we move on to the amphibian brain, the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and then the human brain. I don't want to go into the detail of all this, but you will understand that your brain is just not this part which is sitting inside your skull, but it also travels down along your spine to the place you are sitting. The action of sitting properly is called asana in yoga and other practices in the Sanatana Hindu system. So you are having the right posture of sitting is very important for spiritual practices. The kurmasana, kurma meaning the turtle, the firm grip that you have when you are sitting is very, very important. That is why I have made you sit in Siddhasana for many months before any kind of meditation actually could begin. So just like the Mount Meru or the Mount Mandara is sitting on the asana, the kurmasana, which is nothing but Vishnu, we are sitting on the evolutionary asana, the evolutionary position of being a human, which is nothing but the growth of Vishnu. And the Mount Meru that we are talking about is nothing but your spinal cord and the vertebral column that passes up to your crown. You have in you the forces of good and evil inside of you, and the moment you start meditation, the moment you try to calm yourself down and bring your mental thoughts to cessation, to stop the continuous process of thought after thought after thought, you will be torn between the judgment of good and evil, just like the churning of the ocean. On one side being the forces of good, the Devas; on the other side the forces of darkness and evil, the Daityas. You will understand the moment you sit silent and try to focus on your breath or any other type of meditation, 112 and more that we have, you will understand that only evil thoughts, only confusion happens inside of you. Suffice it for now that this whole churning of the ocean to get Amrita, Amrita is your immortality. We all know that Sanatana Hindu tradition is of the view that we are all immortal, we are all Amrita Putraha, we are born immortal. To achieve that immortality consciously, you must undergo the meditative processes as prescribed in our tradition. Starting with the Mahakriya. If you look at what Mahakriya itself is, Mahakriya is the scientific process of awakening your Kundalini and taking your life force to the crown chakra, to the crown of your head, passing through the vertebral column, which is exactly what is happening here in the analogy of the story of Samudra Manthana, or the churning of the ocean. So what is this ocean? This ocean is life itself. So I would request all of you who are watching this video to partake in this churning of the ocean, churning of your own life. Take the next step of evolution, become conscious of your own being. Try to achieve the immortality. Try to drink the nectar of ambrosia, Amrita, by starting Mahakriya today. Drop in a line when you watch this video. I'll be happy to give you the first step, the first process called Sanjeevani Kriya, which will also help you get rid of 99% of all your ailments in one go. With this, I will put a comma. We'll pause for today. If there are any questions, I will take the question in a brief time. And I would like to tell you that the next session is going to go into the detail of what this Samudra Manthana is, what this churning of ocean is. So please do not miss the next session and be a part of this. As usual, we'll have a small prayer to Guru, and then I will be taking your questions. Let's bring our hands together and repeat after me. Dhyana Moolam Gurur Murti, Puja Moolam Gurur Padam, Mantra Moolam Gurur Vakyam, Moksha Moolam Gurur Kripa. Shri Shambho Ramanatha, Shri Shambho Ramanatha. Alak Adesh, 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 Alak Adesh. So I see that there are some questions coming in. So one very important question is, isn't a mountain too small at the universal scale? Now you just have to scale it up and think that mountain again is the analogy of your own vertebra. Remember that. So you must think of a Merudanda, or you must think of a universal churning rod. Here represented by a mountain, because that is the best they could do there. All these are symbolic analogies, don't take them literally. When you're doing the practice, you must understand, I think you will recall, I know many of the sadhakas, many of my shishyas mention that the moment they start meditating, there's a lot of confusion that comes forth, there's a lot of viciousness, there's a lot of heat that comes out, there's a lot of negativity that comes out. We will see how all this is explained to us in this very story in the Shiva Purana, where Shiva drinks the initial poison that is released before the Amrita. We will talk about all this in our next session. Shri Shambho Ramanatha. Alak Adesh, Alak Adesh.